saw it as something different, something unique. So, you know, you got to work really, really hard to keep your thinking clean and make it simple. And, you know, if you can stay there long enough, and you'll have breakthroughs. And for my wife, she kind of got it a year later from someone else. And she got into the business, but I'll come back to the business here in a moment. But over the last, 15 years, I've had the great fortune to listen to a lot of health professionals, a lot of really, really smart people with a lot of, acronyms at the end of their name. And we as a company, we as a consumer goods company have brought a narrative or a story or the case to be made for what's called, prevention. And that never did anything for me. I was off the couch. I was fit. I was doing stuff. So for the Olympians on the horn tonight, this is what I've come to learn about these plant powders and how they can make the body work. Food makes the body come alive. Good food makes it work. Great food makes it perform. And so what I've been able to sort of take all of that education from the doctors and the science and the medical side and really translate what's going on in the body to sort of just the language of how athletes think. And it's got to be related to performance. And, if you think about us, we're more alike than we are different. If you go inside the hood, what makes, grandma come alive and my daughter come alive and the greatest generation and the next generation and type 2 diabetic, type A personality and an Olympian, weekend warrior, all of that human physiology, when you get under the hood, what makes, our organs, our systems, our cells, tissues come alive, turns out to be grounded in some pretty basic things. Conditioning can be physical, and conditioning can be, chemical. There's biomechanics and there's biochemistry. Putting chemistry in your favor as it relates, using food well, using food right, using food as a weapon is a thing in athletics. But most of the sports nutrition, conversation, conventional wisdom in sports nutrition has to do around what I call the gasoline side of the conversation. Think of car, gas, and oil. The gasoline is carbs, proteins, and fats. It's caloric. Whether it's trying to bulk up, mass up, put on mass or lean out. It's all related to calories and energy. And it's a really important part of getting your body to perform. Where we come into the equation with plant powders, certainly, the produce concentrates or Juice Plus doesn't have any calories. It's just everything else. And it's the oil part. So what is the oil part? If the gas is carbohydrates, proteins, and fats and calories, what's the other stuff? Well, it's everything else. And that's vitamins and minerals and enzymes and antioxidants and phytochemicals. And what is that? Just plant powder, plant matter, plant chemicals, plant nutrients. And there are tens of thousands of those things. And when they combine inside whole food, it's just in time sort of biotechnology to go into your system and do stuff. And what does it do? There's three things that food does. It fuels, it builds, and it conditions. We fuel for energy. We build for matter, meaning the mass and matter of us. We discard about 300 pounds of cells a year and recreate 300 pounds of cells a year. And that third pillar, what I call the blind spot in sports nutrition, really is the blind spot. And it's conditioning function. When I say conditioning function, what do I mean by that? So if replenishing glycogen is about carbohydrates and rebuilding damaged muscle proteins is about amino acids and protein, this conditioning of function, this third pillar, what I call the blind spot, is where most athletes fall short. Most athletes don't get her done, as it's the same for us civilians now who don't consume enough produce. For Bart Simpson, it's 9 servings a day, guys. For women, it's 7 servings a day, and I say round up. If you're active, for women, it's 9. For if you're active man, it's into double digits. If you're an athlete, I can assure you, you should be consuming double-digit servings of produce a day. Problem with that, doesn't have a lot of calories. It's got a lot of fiber. It will satiate you quick. You can't sit down and eat 4 apples. That just sounds counterintuitive. Doesn't make sense. There's just not enough calories to serve as a caloric requirement. When I was an athlete, I'd eat 6, 7, 8,000 calories a day. I could not do that on plant matter alone. But what does eating that much plant matter do to your body and make it work? And so just real quickly, because I don't have a lot of time tonight, it does some very powerful things. And really the narrative of what it does is elevate your ability, your physiological ability, what's called the adaptive response. And under the adaptive response is recovery and durability. And if you think about being able to go into a gym or going onto a court or whatever sport you pick and bang your body hard and beat it up hard and train hard that day and break tissue down, you got to go to sleep at night and then wake up refreshed, recovered, rejuvenated, replenished, and ready to pound and go again. Now, the famous quote in sport is there's no such thing as overtraining, only under recovery. And if you think about that from a human performance standpoint, human performance happens in recovery. So what these plant powders actually do, these produce concentrates do, is they get inside your body and they do things physiologically overnight, have you get up and perform and go do, because you've had an adaptive response inside of you that's delivered either physiological durability to keep you maintaining a training regimen, or a recovery response where you've trained hard and you're refreshed and ready for the next day. And what do I mean by recovery or durability? So inside your body, you need to protect tissues, you need to modulate cells and tissues, and you need to activate organs and systems and things. So just some couple examples. Athletes work wicked hard to develop more energy output in their muscles. You know, whether it's strength, anaerobic, whether it's power, endurance, all of that has to do with energy output. And energy output comes from one tiny little organelle in all our cells. It's called the mitochondria. Well, that thing about the mitochondria, and this gets a little geeky, and I love having some beers and talking about all the geeky stuff, but you got to maximize energy output as an athlete, and your mitochondria is where it comes from. So athletes work really, really hard to develop what's called mitochondrial density in let's say a red blood cell in their muscle, or a red muscle cell, or a cell in their muscles. Sorry about that. And what will happen is they'll take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and they won't do what's called the protection of mitochondrial density. That's kind of a fancy term just to say oxidative stress, free radical damage, mitochondria. Right at that point of combustion where the mitochondria creates the energy molecule, free radicals start to proliferate. I don't have time to go into all that. Here's the bottom line is you want to preserve that gain. You want to preserve that gain with protection. So whether it's protecting yourself from oxidative damage, oxidative stress, or sort of the inflammatory response, when you bang your body hard as an athlete, you inflame that body, you break that tissue, it inflames, and you want to reduce inflammation to heal faster. So from a protection standpoint, oxidative stress and inflammation, 2 biggies. In terms of modulation, modulating the immune system, you want your T cells, your B cells, your natural killer cells, you want those things all working well, modulated, so that when you get on a plane and you're heading off to the Olympic Games next year, Pyeongchang or Tour de France or the World Series, I don't pick your sport, whatever, it's showtime, game time. You don't get taken out by a common cold, a bug, a flu, a virus. You got to have a frontline defense. So modulating immunity, that's a big deal. The final thing is activation. What do you want to activate? You want to activate vascular capacity. Turns out your vessels, are run by this thing called the endothelium. What makes that thing plastic, gives it plasticity, has the ability to expand, contract. It turns out is affected by the biochemistry of food from nutrient-dense food. This endothelium actually has some plasticity and works better. So that's the activation side. So whether you're protection, modulation, activation, developing sort of conditioning functionality across your physiology it's a gameplay. It can give you a competitive advantage. Food does things to the body over time. So these little itty bitty plant powders may not do anything for you in a day, in a week, even a month, even a couple months. A lot of athletes, a lot of fit people get on and say, I don't feel anything. It's doing nothing. Not true. Just flat out not true. It's called subclinical. What medical professionals call subclinical. You can't see it, touch it, taste it, feel it until a compounding effect over time, good or bad. And so what these plant powders do is they have a compounding effect where you start out a day, a week, a month, couple months, and it starts to compound. And that matters, and that compounding effect, if you're compounding over time, you're going to wake up a year from now, a couple years from now, and that effect is going to be in effect in your body, and you will feel the results. So the earth did not move for me when I got on Juice Plus. I was not able to leap tall buildings in a single bound when I got on Juice Plus. 18 months later, I realized, you know what? I'm combing out less hair. My skin's better. I'm recovering faster. I can go out on the field, play, and bang hard as a 40-year-old with 30-year-olds or 20-year-olds. Now I'm 50. Now it's 30s. You know, I can play hard, get up, and I can do it again. So that recovery response, I started to notice some of that. But it played out over time. One of the biggest problems is athletes get on, they don't feel anything, and they bugger out. That's why they pay us to go out and educate. So, you know, I love to talk about this stuff. I think we have a real powerful story to bring to the elite athletic community around recovery, durability. And I would invite you to get with the person who invited you and learn more about it. And I'm always happy to chat. There's some fun things. There's a website I can send you to that kind of says a little bit about this. If you reference at the end or ask me at the end, I can give it to you. But transitioning over, how much time do we have left? Probably not much time. About 10 minutes? All right.
Sorry about that, Jeff. Yeah, we're good. We got 10, 15 minutes.
All right. I do want to say, if anyone has any questions, I'm certainly willing to hang out afterwards. I don't know how long the call is able to last here, but if you want to ask a question, there's a chat box down there. I can reference that chat box at the end. And if you got a question, whether it's on the the product side or the business side, bring it on. Ask your questions. Try to stump me. Shark Tank. All right. So I guess the business was really hard for me. I did not get it. I came with massive baggage, huge ego. Olympian, WallStreet.com. I did business in the boardroom. I got my degree in finance. And I looked at these plant powders. I got it as a consumer. Cool. I did not get how I could make money off of little itty bitty fruit and vegetable powders, let alone provide for my family, right? But I was happy my wife was into it, and I was like, "You go, girl." It was like her little thing. I was like, "You go be a distributor. That's cute." I didn't say that, but kind of condescending in my brain. I just didn't understand, right? That's kind of the bottom line. I had an illusion of knowledge, and I didn't know what I didn't know. So my wife she became a distributor. She came home one day and she goes, I'm going to do this on the side as a business. And I'm like, awesome. It's the one thing I did right. I was a supportive husband. And if that's all you can be right now, then that is powerful. Just be a supportive husband. The other thing, I did one other thing in that I attended events. I was her date. I showed up in the back and I sat in the back and I listened and I marinated and I pondered and I poked the bear and, I met the people and I started having beers with them. I was like, hey, these are real people. They don't have 3 eyes and 2 horns. And, I was like, tell me more. Then I went at some boot camps and then I went to a national conference, and I don't need to bore you with the 4 or 5 years of my mental brain damage because I had a tremendous amount of resistance. I had many stereotypes, which are pretty common in this business, like network marketing conjures up all kinds of monkey wrench game, conversations. But what I realized is as different as Juice Plus is to the vitamin pill industry, right? And I think of a multivitamin in the pantry shelf for your brain. You got a multivitamin over here, that approach. And then you got plant powders and produce concentrates, completely different, right? Like totally different. As we have network marketing as an industry, I would submit we are so different from that industry in that I call us a network franchise. And I got that language from Dan Holtzman. So what are some distinctions about a network franchise that I learned that I did not know coming in, but we don't know what we don't know. And if we hang out long enough and we poke the bear and we uncover the rocks and we ask the questions, we're going to get our answers. But most people give up and they bail. So I attended events, I learned, and I marinated, and I came finally at the end of my, 3 or 4 years, 5 years later, it's a real company in the real world making a real difference, one person at a time. And what I did see was I saw Juice Plus as a competitive advantage. We have a couple products that nobody else has in the world. It's like, imagine if you were given the exclusive distribution rights to the iPhone. That'd be a pretty good business, wouldn't it? The thing about the iPhone is you see it and then you tactily start, and then it just kind of speaks for itself, right? Kind of like the Tower Garden, right? It is nothing like it. You see it, it's iconic, you touch it, like kind of sells itself. What part don't you get? Juice Plus, a little bit more Not obvious, right? That's why they pay us to go out and educate, gift and share, make those distinctions. Produce concentrates, multivitamin. That's when I go out and talk most of the time to strangers, I say, hey, have you ever heard of produce concentrates? You know, I don't say, have you ever heard of Juice Plus? Because most people have, and they think it's a multivitamin. So why not go out and say, hey, have you ever heard of a large-headed tennis racket? Or have you ever heard of toothpaste in a tube? Or have you heard of this thing called internet search? It's an amazing company called Google. They invented internet search. Like, they didn't invent it, but, you know, toothpaste in a tube. Oh, we're Crest, right? Big-headed tennis racket. Oh, we're Prince. You know, these categories. And when you get people to understand categories and they believe in the category, you know, we're kind of done. So it's like, yeah, we've pioneered those categories. So network franchise is a new term. No one's really ever heard of it. And what does it do? It says, cool, tell me more. So how are we different than everyone else out there? I don't know of another network marketing company that has healthcare benefits. I'll throw that straight up. Like, I've been living on healthcare benefits for a decade, and they're good benefits. I've had like 3 surgeries in the last year because I beat my body up playing with 30-year-olds on the soccer pitch. But they're fun. They're sports medicine kind of injuries. So I don't know of another company where 85% of their revenue comes from, you know, customers only. You know, most network marketing companies are buyers clubs. You know, it's join the club and buy the stuff. Join the club and buy the catalog. You know, 85% of, you know, we did 600 plus, I think 650 million last year. Maybe 600 million last year in 2016, best year ever in our company's history. Estimates are we're going to cross $1 billion a year by 2020. Like, the train has left the station. Our job is to help people catch up, right? And we do $1 billion in little itty bitty plant powders. Like, that is some serious game. That is a whole lot of kale and a whole lot of broccoli and a whole lot of, you know, all the other fruits and vegetables that we harvest and we juice, we crush into powders and we dry, you know, and we encapsulate. So this company has got game. And I realized early on that we got something no one else has. That, from an athletic perspective, competitive advantage. Some of the other ways that we're different than other network marketing companies is, you know, we don't front end load. You know, it's not $1,000 to buy the kit and buy the business package. You know, we're not out selling $1,000 buy-ins, and so that front end load thing, problematic. But in the world we live in today, you know, the world is changing. The way people earn income is changing, and you know, to be a 1099er, a free agent, an independent contractor, there's all kinds of, you know, ways that independent contractors can play. But the terminology that I use is I'm an agent, like a real estate agent, like an insurance agent, like a sports agent. I represent and I'm representative of, and there's an agent relationship, right? So I'm an agent for the Juice Plus company. I'm an agent for plant powders. I'm an agent for vertical aeroponics. I'm an agent for this network franchise. Now, most people, that's all they ever do in this business. They join this business and they're just a health food agent. That's my terminology. I think we're agents, and I call them, yeah, I'm a health food agent. And that's what most people do. And that's fine. And the one thing we've taken from network marketing that's pretty profound is a way to scale income beyond your own personal ability to do it. And it's just called revenue sharing. It's not a, you know, rocket science, you know, crazy idea. It's just revenue sharing is what it is, or profit sharing, or whatever term you want to use. You just win-win. Like you make money, I make money. So it's a revenue sharing arrangement. And most people just retail and are health food agents. You can build what I call a health food agency. What does a great real estate agent do? They get the entrepreneurial bug in themselves. And I want to bust off of Prudential or bust off of Remax and go start my own what? My own real estate agency. I'm going to take on some capital risk. I'm going to put some shingles up and put an address on there, and I'm going to get my tribe of agents, and we're going to go have the Jeff Olson real estate agency, and I'm going to earn revenue share off my other agents. And we're going to do things different. We're going to do it our way. We're going to do community-based, tribal. We're going to go insurance agent, sports ad agency, creative ad agency. It's a guy who took some risk or a woman who took some risk, brought some other agents, some creative guys or some sports agents. Not a rocket science or not a new idea. And that's all we do. We're health food agents, or you can build a health food agency. So that's what I have come to learn. But the biggest, I'll tell you, I'm kind of in close, and I see we got Oh, we got some questions here, so we can go over the questions. But kind of in closing on the business, I will tell you this. If you've not come to Anaheim, if you've not come to the big show, if you've not come to see the world show up for this conversation, I would invite you to do it. All of my breakthroughs, my major breakthroughs, have come from boot camps or national conferences. And what you're gonna come and see is you're not unique. Your story is not unique. You're not special. You don't have some big thing. Any other sort of resistance or problem or issue or challenge or resistance or skepticism, you come there and chances are, thousands and thousands and thousands of other people have the same thing. You're going to begin to see your story in other people's story, and you're going to realize that, wow, and that would be my invitation. This was the hardest thing I had to do in this business. The hardest thing I had to do in this business was surrender. I had a lot of resistance, brought a lot of resistance, and this tried and proven system in my little brain was a box, and it was trying to box me in. And when someone used the word aerodynamic and put it in my language, Jeff, it's just aerodynamic. That was just liberating for me. And I realized that it is streamlined, it is tried, it is proven, it is effective, it is efficient. And I would invite you to surrender to the tried and proven system. Now, we as guys, we got to roll a little bit differently. I don't know a lot of guys who do Shred 10. I don't have time to go into all that, but I roll differently in this business. I talk a lot of smack to my guys. I don't try to educate them. I usually just talk smack to them, say, give me your credit card. This is like, so that's a whole other conversation. But I want to go to the questions here. And
hey, Jeff, before you jump on those those questions, one thing we like to ask all our speakers is, if you could sum it up at the business side, what are the 3 things that have made you successful, or that you would do daily, weekly, monthly, that would help other people build their business?
Well, the first thing I did was marry up. So I married my wife. So.
If we're already married, that's a tough one to do.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And not that I didn't marry up also.
That's sort of a freak. Okay, here's the number one thing. Number one thing. And it's a trait I see across all successful people in this business. And you may want to write this one down. This one's a keeper. Be curious. Like curiosity, if you can find curiosity in that person's story, or find curiosity as to how this works, or be skeptical but curious around this thing, curious, but be curious in an investigative treasure hunt kind of way. Because I can assure you that will compel you into a due diligence journey that will be very rewarding. And what I would invite you to do is be curious fast and not slow. And what I mean by that is get all of that resistance and questions and struggle and thought, all that stuff in there answered quickly. That may end up being that you come to the end of that all-out massive action and say, you know what, this thing is not for me. And that's a no. Move on, fish and cut bait, no worries. As Jeff Roberti says, get to a firm yes or a firm no. So number one is be curious. Again, number 2, I would say surrender to the system. Surrender to this tried and proven system. Find your own way to do it. Like, I don't know a lot of guys doing Shred 10. We got to roll differently. I would submit to us guys out there, we got to come up with our own Shred 10 as guys. We got to come up with our own thing. I'm masterminding with some other guys on a whole athletic thing. So be creative on how to go to your tribe and how to roll. And if you're struggling with that, reach out. 3-way, reach out to colleagues, reach out to sideline buddies. I mean, this is a giving collegial community, and you can gain ideas. So be curious and then surrender to the system, but have a voice and then be authentic. And the third thing I would say is, would you follow you? If you can look in the mirror and say, you know what, I got some, I think I'd follow me. And that's an invitation to kind of this whole personal growth, bucket. And some people aren't really into that. That it's pretty confronting. We got a lot of resources on we're as a company launching a whole new personal growth thing. You got Bob Samara, you got Tony Robbins, you got Landmark, you got Eric Worre. I mean, all of this sort of third-party education that is, look, here's the deal. Do you want smaller challenges in your life or greater capacity? If you put that on an XY axis, greater challenges, money, freedom, time, contribution, impact, and capacity, most people want to shrink their challenges. And I just say grow your capacity. And that's a personal growth, personal development, professional development. You got to get your game on. You got to plug in. So be curious, surrender to the system, and would you follow you? Make sense?
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. So we got a couple questions left here. I want to respect everyone's time. These things just came online in like the last year, kind of freaking me out. What is your opinion of whey for muscle recovery and growth? At least, what do you think of it when you take it along with a, well, I think whey is fine. Look, whether you use plants to get more protein or whey to get more protein, it's not my battle. If you can get the same amount of protein from plants, I would submit you might be interested to do that, because what is whey a derivative of? Whey is a derivative of dairy, and whey consumed every day. Like this is maybe an athlete. This is a regimen, and you're doing this regimen every day, and you're pounding whey every day. It's going to have a compounding effect on you, I can assure you, whether it's plants or whey. And what that compounding effect can do, and here's kind of the thing to think about, is what whey, dairy triggers a systemic, very tiny inflammatory response. You're not going to feel it in a day. You're not going to feel it in a week. You're not going to feel it maybe in a month. But you compound that systemic inflammation of compounding whey. If that's your protein to get the caloric and protein requirement, understand that chronic inflammation over time can have a detrimental effect. It's going to make your body work harder to compensate. So what I submit to athletes is, if I can give you all the upside with none of the downside, would you be open to that? I might give you all the upside of protein, but none of the downside of an inflammatory response. Would you consider, the plant powder approach? Now then we get into the whole soy versus whey, and soy, I'm happy to address that, but that's not the question. It was whey. So I don't have a problem with whey, but it's the compounding effect over time that you may want to consider. And if we can get the upside without the downside, plant powders can come in. So what about creatine? Creatine works, man. I don't know what to tell you. Creatine works. But what's the compounding effect over time, right? Look, athletes take illegal drugs because they work. I mean, shocker. Creatine works, but if you're if you're trying to, be Mr. Universe, or you're trying to go for an Olympic Games and something, you can use creatine, use it smart, use it well. Just understand that you pound creatine every day, probably over time, it's going to have an effect. But creatine in and of itself is not bad. But if you pound that over time, ball's in your court. So I don't have a problem with creatine. What calls can I have my husband listen to that may spark? Look, yeah, good question. How do I get my unsupportive spouse to be supportive and plug it? Get them to events, man. Like buy the plane ticket, get them handcuff, pull them to someone who you respect. You got to get people to show up to the live stuff. There's so much stuff out there on the on the videos, on these webinars, in the comfort of our home. But when you disrupt the life and you take someone out of their home environment and you put them fish out of water in a completely new environment like Anaheim with 8,000 people, or at a boot camp, so go to the live events. Got to give them the live events. That's the best advice I have for you. How do you have your prospect that believes in whey protein is what they need to build muscle to be open to plant protein? Well, my first question is, are they on Juice Plus? You want to fight the protein battle, I'm not sure I'd sign up for that class. Get them on plant powders first. Produce concentrates. I call complete plant powder shakes, and I call Juice Plus produce concentrates. Take your whey, but get on the produce concentrates. Start there, right? Start there. What is that website? healthfoodagents.com/HPN. It stands for Human Performance Nutrition. Health Food Agents, plural, healthfoodagents.com/HPN. Stands for Human Performance Nutrition. Someone said, "What do you mean?" Question mark. Yeah, a lot of questions about protein. Someone offered you can go to nutrition. Best part of Juice Plus versus these other plant-based proteins over 30. Okay, they're just talking amongst themselves on the chat. So here's the bottom line. There's other good products out there. Look, we've got kick butt products. We've got products that have published efficacy. There's a lot of good. But look, when it comes to shakes, our shakes taste pretty good. In the world of shakes, you put all shakes next to each other, tastes pretty good. Where this comes into play is when you get the uber, paleo Nazi, or the psycho masters, track racer, or the Olympian who's like trying to really figure it out, and they're trying to actually be really practical, and they just want to do what works. And they've been trained to say protein works and eat my way because it works. Yeah, of course it works. But here, the train's left the station, and sports nutrition 2.0, as I call it, food is a weapon, and just try to, use it well and use it like a weapon. And if we can give you all the upside and none of the downside, then that's a thing. When it comes to protein, the urban myth is you got to get it from, dairy and flesh. And so, we all know that kind of conversation. I don't have a lot of protein resistance. And maybe that's just because I have such belief that I just like energetically, that I occur to people that way. And maybe that's something you need to think about. Like if your belief system is not high enough in these plant powders, then maybe if you're at a 6 or a 5, I assure you, you're going to resonate. You're going to oscillate. Your frequency out into the world in conversation is going to come across as a 5 or a 6. I know what I know. But I know enough to know that I don't know what I don't know. So I'm always curious. I'm always humble. I'm always willing, but I'm always like, bring it on. I love the debate. I love to talk. And if I don't know, what do? You know what? I'm going to call Dr. Mitochondrial. I'm going to call Dr. Candace Corson. I'm going to bring in some other person. And then what does that show? That shows that you have a collegial group of people, of colleagues that you can bring in. So you can bring in an athlete, you can bring in a mom, you can bring in a doctor, you can bring in and if you don't have on your cell phone, this is homework for the new people. If you don't have on your cell phone your 5 upline, like on speed dial, or if you don't have on your cell phone at least 5 people in this business who make $100,000 a year that you can just like whip out and speed dial, that's on you. That's on you. Here's kind of the summary. This company is up to something. We are going to cross $1 billion. Probably sooner than later. And I guess the invitation is we have so many resources as a company. I almost think we have too many resources. The question that you got to ask yourself and your team and look in the mirror is, are you being resourceful? Are you having that adaptive response, to this business? Are you taking the struggle, getting beaten hard, waking up the next day with an adaptive response and recovery, right? In this business, that's a lot of mind, right? That's a lot of training. That's a lot of disciplinary disappointments, but a lot of resources. I invite you to be resourceful. How are we doing? We good?
We're good. If you're done, you're over time, but we appreciate you spending that 45 minutes with us. Yes, you don't shred, drink the beer, carbo load for the weekend.
That's right. That's right. God bless everyone. Have a great night. And if you want to say anything else, but I'll see you all in Anaheim, and you can reach me on Facebook. But go ahead and wrap her up.
All right. No, we're all set. We appreciate it, Jeff. Thank you for spending the time with us tonight. And for those of you out there on the call, we'll whoever invited you to this call, we'll be doing this every second Tuesday of the month. We'll have different male speakers providing their perspective, probably with a beer also. And and so look for that. So thank you, everyone.
Yep. Next call is April 13th. And thank you guys for being here. Jeff, thanks again for your time. We really appreciate you.